Okay, let's talk about it. From your social media feed to the nightly news, it feels like everybody is talking about drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. They're part of a class of meds called GLP-1 agonists, and they are completely changing the game when it comes to weight loss and diabetes. So today we're going to cut through all that noise and get right to the science behind the headlines.
To really get why this is such a big deal, let's start with a voice from the front lines. A doctor said this, and it really hits home. It gets to the heart of the hope these drugs are offering people who've struggled with obesity for, well, forever. It's a true game changer, and like any powerful tool, it's absolutely crucial to understand exactly how it works.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with why these drugs are suddenly everywhere, then we'll break down the science of how they work. We're going to cover the incredible benefits, the common side effects, and of course the more serious risks, including what happens when you stop taking them. And finally, we'll wrap up by talking about the right way to think about their place in medicine.
Okay, let's just dive right in. The buzz is impossible to ignore, right? Thanks to a ton of media attention and some high-profile celebrity chatter, these medications have just exploded into the public eye, creating this massive global demand. But what exactly are they? So at their core, GLP-1 agonists are basically clever copycats. They're synthetic versions of a hormone our own bodies make called glucagon-like peptide 1. Our gut naturally releases this stuff after we eat, and it's a key signal that tells our body, hey, it's time to process this food. And by the way, you're getting full. These drugs just turn up the volume on that natural signal. Now, you might be surprised to hear that these drugs aren't brand new. The first one was actually approved way back in 2005 for type 2 diabetes. The real shift, the reason we're all talking about them now, happened in 2021. That's when semaglutide was approved specifically for obesity, and that is what opened the floodgates. So, how do they actually pull it off? How do these drugs create such dramatic results? Well, the science is actually fascinating and surprisingly straightforward. It's like a clever hack of our own biology. Think of it like a four-pronged attack on our metabolism. First, they signal your pancreas to release insulin, which helps handle the sugar from your meal. Second, they tell your liver to chill out and stop dumping extra sugar into your system. Third, and this is a big one, they slow down how fast your stomach empties, so you feel physically full for way longer. And fourth, they work directly on your brain to dial down the hunger signals. It's a powerful combo that really changes your whole relationship with food and feeling full. So with that in mind, let's look at the results. This is the data that has everyone so excited. And honestly, you're about to see why. Just look at this number, negative 24.2%. In one clinical trial for a newer GLP-1 drug called retatrutide, people with obesity lost, on average, over 24% of their body weight. To put that in perspective, that's a level of weight loss we used to only see with something like bariatric surgery. It's a really big deal. And it's not a one-hit wonder either. As you can see from this chart, the results are pretty incredible across the board. The exact numbers change from drug to drug, sure, but they all show a level of weight loss that just blows the typical 5 to 10% from diet and exercise out of the water. And here's where it gets even more important. The benefits go way beyond the number on the scale. This number, 20%, represents the reduction in major cardiovascular events. We're talking heart attacks and strokes for patients on semaglutide in a landmark study. This proves these drugs aren't just for weight loss. They can be truly life-saving. And the list of good news just keeps growing. We're talking improved blood sugar, lower blood pressure, less of that bad LDL cholesterol. Plus, new research is pointing to potential benefits for all sorts of other related issues: kidney disease, sleep apnea, even fatty liver disease. It's pretty amazing. But of course, there's no such thing as a miracle drug without some trade-offs. So let's flip the coin and talk about the other side, starting with the most common issues people run into. So here's the catch. The very mechanism that makes these drugs work so well, slowing down your digestion, is also the thing that causes the most frequent side effects. A majority of people, something like 50 to 60%, are going to have some kind of stomach or gut issue, especially when they first start the medication. The main complaints are pretty much what you'd expect. Nausea is the big one, by far. But you also see things like vomiting, diarrhea, and constipation. Now, for many people, these symptoms get better over time. But for some, they're bad enough that it's just not worth it, and they stop taking the drug. Okay, so beyond those common GI issues, there are some rarer but more serious potential risks we need to be aware of. And maybe the biggest question of them all is, what happens when you stop the treatment? The research points to a few key concerns. There are reports of pancreatitis, that's an inflammation of the pancreas, and also gallbladder problems. In some cases, people can have kidney injury, especially if they get really dehydrated from vomiting or diarrhea. And the FDA also requires what's called a boxed warning, that's its most serious kind, for a potential risk of a certain type of thyroid tumor. Though, to be clear, this has mostly been seen in studies with rodents so far. And this slide is a perfect example of how science is a process. It's always evolving. When it comes to certain risks, like a blockage in your intestines, the data we have right now is actually conflicting. You have one study from the UK that suggested the risk was higher, but then you have a bigger study from Scandinavia that found no increased risk at all. It's a good reminder that we're still learning.
And that brings us to the rebound effect. This right here might be the most important finding of all. In a major study, patients who stopped taking the medication gained back about 2/3 of the weight they'd lost within a single year. Basically, as soon as the drug is gone, that food noise and appetite that it was suppressing just comes roaring back. This shows pretty clearly that these are not a temporary fix.
So, where does all this leave us? After digging into the amazing benefits and the very real risks, what's the right way to think about these incredibly powerful new medications? The consensus among doctors and scientists is clear. We need to think of obesity as a chronic disease, just like high blood pressure or high cholesterol. And that means these medications are a treatment for that chronic disease, not a cure. To keep the benefits, you have to keep the treatment going. They are a powerful, effective tool for long-term management. And that leaves us with one final, pretty big thought. The science behind these drugs is treating obesity like the biological chronic condition it is. But as a culture, we often still talk about it like it's just a matter of willpower. The arrival of these powerful treatments really forces a much bigger question on all of us. Is our society ready to make that same shift in perspective? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us.